Well, the thing that I think about most when I think about the Schreiber story is just courage and vision. Schreiber was created just like virtually any other company. It was a few people that had a vision for something and created it from nothing.
A lot of times customers will ask, who's Schreiber? What's the name? Where'd the name come from? Is the Schreiber family own Schreiber Foods? Really, it started in the 1940s with L.D. Barney Schreiber.
Everybody called him Barney, but L.D. Schreiber was really the money behind the operation. He was a butter guy in Chicago who wanted to start up a cheese operation here in Green Bay. So he connected with Merr Bush, who really had the operational expertise, and Dave Nussbaum, who had the operational expertise, and they partnered together to really start up Schreiber Foods. And it was named after Schreiber because he was really the money behind the efforts.
Dad decided he'd buy a farm in New York. Well, he hadn't gotten along very far with those plans when Mr. Schreiber contacted him and said, "Would you start a cheese operation in Green Bay for me?" And Dad said yes, and he did. Once the building was built and the equipment was pretty much in place, Dave Nussbaum came over from the Wheeler Corporation and joined Dad. In 1945, the operation started.
They start up at the old Hagemeister plant here in Green Bay. They really started something that wasn't a part of the cheese industry, and that was dairy with integrity.
In the cheese industry at the time, many organizations were selling cheese not completely on the up and up.
In those old days, there were a lot of companies which kind of shortchanged weight. The Schreiber attitude was absolutely did not go along with that attitude.
And Merr Bush saw an opportunity to really own transparency and honesty, so he initiated what's called 16 ounces to the pound. Every pound of cheese you buy will have 16 ounces in it. And if you're unsatisfied with that, you can return the cheese. And it sounds silly almost to think about it, but this was a revolutionary idea at the time, and it really set Schreiber apart from its competitors.
In our early years, Schreiber sold processed cheese, built upon government and commissary business. And Safeway was really our first chance to partner with a customer and say, we will do your customer brand.
Because we were treating them fairly and giving them a quality product, that word got out through the buyers for various companies would get together and talk. So pretty soon, people began to realize that we were a good company to buy from. Now, we weren't always the cheapest, but over the years, buyers have begun to find that quality is vitally important.
Aside from quality, one of our biggest advantages is our technological advances. Bob Bush has to figure out an efficient processed cheese manufacturing process without violating Kraft's patents. And they pull it off with technology that for its time is exceptional.
That operation ran about 40 packages a minute, and they were half-pound packages. So it was about 20 pounds a minute. Not very much in terms of the way we look at a product volume today. But I called Dad and Dave and said, we've got the machine going finally. It's running. And there was a wrapping machine attached to the end of it that would wrap the half-pound packages. And we had everything working. And Dad and Dave came down and looked at it. And I will never forget, Dad just shook his head and he said, we will never, ever be able to sell all the cheese that machine can produce. Dave said, no, you're right, we never will.
As Schreiber continued to grow, we opened up our first plant in 1950 outside of Wisconsin in southwest Missouri.
For a few decades, everything is kind of going smoothly, but in 1965, it hits its first major roadblock. It's the worst nightmare for a food company.
I got a phone call from one of our grocery chains that some people had gotten sick, and the local health department had determined that it was an organism that was found in some cheese. They'd purchased cheese that we had wrapped and sold to them. And then I got another call, and then another. Pretty soon the phone was ringing all day, and I knew we had a major problem on our hands.
The issue turns out to be so big that senior leaders head to Washington, D.C. to meet with the FDA.
Dave and my brother and Dad and Vince and I sat at the table in the hotel in Washington, and nobody wanted to say anything because we knew that we were shortly going to be bankrupt. I saw something, I don't know what it was, but some glimmer in the eye, I guess, of the chief of bacteriology for Food and Drug. And so Vince and I went back to see him the next day. And I asked him if he had any thoughts on how a test might be done. And he said, well, yes, we have almost finished a method of detecting the enterotoxin in meat. And he said, I think with some variations, you could test cheese the same way. Well, I heaved a deep sigh of relief and asked Vince to stay with the Food and Drug for a couple of days and get this full story on what they were doing, which he did. And he and his wife developed the method.
And because of that, it really did help from Schreiber's point of view, because we were the leaders because of that, in dealing with food safety issues in the cheese industry. That's what happened because of the incident that happened at Schreiber's, and how we solved the problem was recognized around the world.
When that issue happens, it not only puts a big scare into you, but you realize how important that food safety really is to what we do here at Schreiber. And that's always something that we talk about even today.
In the 1970s, our partnership with McDonald's started and took off. We were expanding our footprint across the United States, from Wisconsin to Missouri to Utah, and that allowed us to touch customers like McDonald's in a way that we never could before. And our partnership with them in particular flourished.
Jerry Rogers was the person, he was the salesperson who really brought the account on. They walked out and they said, you know, we got the McDonald's account. And they had been working on it, I think, for a long time. But everybody was just like, you know, excited. And, you know, what does this mean? McDonald's was kind of like the stepping point. It was like we brought them on, and then that was going to take us down the path of so many other similar companies and organizations, customers that were going to come after that.
For much of its history, Schreiber was a processed cheese company. But in the late 90s, early 2000s, they shift and they bring on additional product categories, including natural cheese, yogurt, and cream cheese.
If you think about cream cheese and yogurt, they're both cultured products. It was just a natural extension of getting into a fermented, cultured product.
The vision was to be the #2 cream cheese player in the United States. We had all the customers, we had all the distribution already set up, so all we needed to do was to get the expertise of manufacturing facilities.
As significant as our investments have been in natural cheese and cream cheese and yogurt in the U.S., Schreiber sees a huge opportunity in investments and acquisition outside of the U.S., and things pick up in a hurry.
In a really short period of time, the global element really took off for Schreiber. We went from having 4 plants outside the United States to more than doubling that to 11 plants today. We acquired 3 in Europe, in Czech Republic, Bulgaria, and Portugal. Shortly after that, we acquired another one in the Canary Islands, 2 more in Spain.
This is big on many levels. Schreiber quickly goes from being non-existent in Europe yogurt to one of its biggest producers.
On a market which, even if the growth in these markets is not what it was 10, 15 years ago, golden age of yogurt in Europe, there are still big markets, huge markets. So that's really the way it started.
As I look back, especially over the last 6 or 7 years where we've really done a lot of work outside the United States, I am so grateful and thankful that we had the courage and to do it. And now I can't even imagine the people in my life today, because of that, not being in my life.
After about 15 years, Barney Schreiber decided to get out of the cheese business, and he sells shares of the company to a group of 13 employees.
They all decided, hey, this is a company that we believe in, that we've built, and we want it to continue.
I think everybody did the same thing. They went down to the bank and they were very generous. Borrowed money from the bank, all the money that I could, mortgaged everything, and everybody else did about the same thing.
That's when we got together and everybody seemed to know what the big picture was. And that became a team. And as you know, it changed, but the 13 original stockholders were the stockholders.
Those 13 are the folks that we call our original founders. They're the ones who really put the money into the business and took it on, ran the business, and made it what it is today.
A few years later, the company offers ownership to a few hundred more employees. Just like it was with the original 13 shareholders, these new shareholders have a huge financial skin in the game.
I received a letter from our president at the time, Jack Ming, in 1997, giving me the chance to buy Schreiber stock. So I had to go to a bank and borrow money to buy shares of the company. Needless to say, there was a high level of ownership and responsibility because you put your own money in.
It really started out with a transition of ownership of a number of key people that had started the company, and now it was time for them really to take some of the money out of the organization as they were aging and continuing their lives. Obviously, selling the company to another individual or organization or entity was always a possibility. But if you take a look at the people that are involved in making that decision and what they had done to help grow the company, not only did we have a lot of skin in the game, we were very proud of what had happened and really wanted that to continue in the future, not only for our families, but for families and individuals to come who would be working for Schreiber Foods.
I remember asking Dave, why did he want more people to own shares? Why didn't they keep it themselves? And he kind of smiled and looked at me and said, because we knew that we had to have everyone to accomplish our task. And I thought a great answer about why I wanted everyone to be a part of it.
Throughout Schreiber's history, there are a number of things that you can point to that you can say have been important throughout. Partner safety, food safety. I think the caring element is one that really shines through, and it's been there from the very beginning. Our founders wanted to make sure that Schreiber was a company that cared about its people and the communities that we're in.
My dad was sick, and that's really when I got to know the employers a little better, or a little bit anyway. They would come over and visit my dad at the house, and we were only in the house about maybe 4 years, maybe 3, when Dad started getting sicker, and so he was missing a fair amount of work. But I do know that he got a check a lot of times, even when he wasn't working. And Mr. Bush came over and In the visits, he noticed what needed updating on the house, the wiring, carpentry, and so on. And he sent his employees over, had work done on the house. And whenever needed something needed to be done, he had it taken care of. What it really boiled down to was the compassion of Schreiber's. We probably wouldn't have really made it.
I feel the best way to describe why caring might be different at Schreiber and why it's so pervasive is that partners take care of each other without any direction from the company. When there are partners in need, when we have to have each other's back, it's not we don't have to send emails or remind people. They're way ahead. They're doing it. And that's when you really know it's in our partners' hearts, and it's literally part of the culture. It's our personality. It's how we roll.
Sometimes I feel like because I've been here so long that every other company is like this, and yet when I talk to my friends or family, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, the companies they work for are nothing like what we have here at Schreiber.
The potential in Schreiber lies in the partners that we continue to hire and develop. And when I look at the partners that we're hiring right out of school and those that are early in their career journey, you got to smile and see that potential is very huge.
We've got a good diversified business. We've got some of the best global customers in the world. What sets us apart is the people. And I know that's an overused term, but until you see it, until you feel it, until you're actually here and you see the caring nature of partners, to me that has been the hook that has kept me here for the 21 years that I've been here. And I think that the combination of those two things really makes Schreiber an unbelievably special place to be.
Care about the company and care about one another. And that will take us a long ways in the future.